Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers had prostate cancer, I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
This week in Black People Should Be the Change That You Want to See. I'm your host, Chrystee Pharris. Now that the protests have gotten the attention of the world and we look forward to actionable discussions that we can start to implement, there seems to be a plethora of discussions on what they should be. Do we defund the police or ask for reparations? Do we try to get specific tax breaks if you're Black, or do we design special social programs for African Americans? I'm here to discuss all of these options and a lot more with my co-host, Janora McDuffie.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, hello to the world. Former Long Beach police officer Quincy Miles, bring you in.
How you doing, everyone?
And our writer right here, Abdul Majid. Hey, everybody.
Hey,
how's it going? Good. Well, let's just dive right on in. And Quincy, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Can't wait to see what you have to say and what you're going to bring to the table from your perspective as a former police officer. So let's jump on in. So now that Black Americans are looking for a redress, the idea of reparations have become a widely discussed topic. Do you think it's possible? And if so, how?
I do believe it's possible. Mm-hmm. I look at the Caribbean community. They with CARICOM. CARICOM was a group of Caribbeans. I believe it's 28 in total. In 2013, they collectively, all 28 island states, put together a 10-point program to ask for reparations for the Caribbean community, which included finance, which included education, which includes technology transfers, things of that stuff. But I'm specific about the reparation I think Black Americans deserve in this country. I believe in the whole ADOS principle. American Descendants of Slavery, and the country is a group that got together to discuss slavery and what they believe with regards to reparations, how it should only go to descendants of slaves in this country and nobody else. That excludes a lot of Africans, that excludes a lot of Caribbeans, because they believe that the reparations only go back to the descendants of slaves. Mm-hmm. And so I'm for that.
And as much as I think that we should do it, I have a feeling that it's not going to happen, just because they just gave $2 trillion for the stimulus checks that they just sent out. We're $25 trillion in debt at the moment. So my question is where are they going to get this money from? Now, I do believe that they need to, but where are they going to get the money from? They're probably going to say, well, we don't have the money right now. Look what just happened. We just came through a pandemic.
Well, you can find the money if you really want to find the money. I absolutely believe in reparations However, I do not believe reparations should be in the form of everybody getting a check just like the stimulus package, right? Or just like the stimulus COVID money. It gets too murky, right? Abdul, like you said, it only goes to descendants of slaves. How do we know who that is exactly? That could be a lot of our white counterparts. And I know that then it becomes also, we might just spend it like we just spent that stimulus money with no acknowledgement and recognition of where it came from. What I believe our reparations should look like is, damn it, give money to the community that has been the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. In other words, put a damn park in the neighborhood, provide Wi-Fi to underserviced communities, build us a damn library, give us new books or new curriculum, put a damn Whole Foods in our community where it's only a church's chicken.
Why can't it be both?
Yeah, because I don't live in the community over there. I want my money.
No, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like we run into too much resistance from the non-Black people when we just say we just gonna mail checks. Who cannot get on board to say, no, don't give money as reparations to the education system when we know we have purposely underfunded and misapplied our education system or our schools. So I think we just have more buy-in and more of a chance to get that passed.
But they did have a problem giving it to the Japanese in '89. Reagan gave every
$125,000, right, a piece.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm just this is just my suggestion or my idea of how we would see results faster. I think we'll be arguing and too much bureaucracy all day if we say we give it to individuals. I think that is what will get pushed back on versus let's build a library in the community.
But what about the people who are older who I feel, and Quincy, I'm gonna let you jump in, but what about the people who are older who don't need parks and libraries and things like that? I mean, should they not be able to reap, these benefits?
Well, I definitely think reparations. I actually think that this country is not going to get over its original sin until that debt is paid. And I think they can find the money by actually what you're hearing about defunding these police departments. You take away some of that money from these police departments and distribute it out to Black people. That's one way we could find the money. Other way is defunding the military. We invest so much billions and billions of dollars in the military to the point that it's at a point that everybody could press one button and blow each other up. So what we really
that's my budget spending.
Yeah. So and then like Abdul said, we didn't pay the Japanese. We even paid the Jews for the Holocaust, and we didn't even have nothing to do with that. And
they're still getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. So they can figure out ways to distribute the money. I was also thinking, I actually was telling somebody, I said, look, all they have to do is erase my debt, give me an 800 credit score and $200,000, and I'll be cool. and also allow Black kids to go to city colleges for free. And we can start there. But yeah, I definitely think reparations is possible, but I think this country is not going to get over 400 years of that original sin until that debt is paid, because they didn't pay the other people. And we need to be compensated for that.
So Tim, Nora, I think part of the problem is the narrative. To add on to what Quincy said, the narrative now is it looks like it's a handout, and it's not a handout; it's a debt, and that's the difference. I think if people go behind paying our debts, I think every American believes in the idea of paying your fair share, paying your debts. This country needs to pay its debts. We do it with what have you. So if we frame it as it's a debt being paid, I think people make it a little bit different as opposed to now where people think it's going to be a handout.
It's definitely a debt because Emmett Till's mom's still alive.
That's right.
Okay? And people, they gave her an apology. No, I'm not sure if she have other kids or grandkids or whoever, but that debt needs to be paid towards them. 10 years ago, they still arresting KKK members from the Alabama church bombing. Those families, they need to be paid for that. It's not just about slavery. It's about people who went through the Jim Crow era, who was torched, who came up fatherless because their dads was lynched, and folks who fought in World War II to just come here to come back home to get lynched.
Right.
That needs to be.
And also too, I mean, I think back on even my own family. I mean, I think on my one side of my family, I think maybe only 2 of us were able to go to college. You know, my grandparents, they came from, having to clean people's houses and be maids and, being janitors. And I mean, just all that stuff because they just weren't allowed to do other things. And we're still suffering. There's no, when you see other families, they're passing on the money, the legacy, and all that kind of stuff. We don't have that in our family, and in most African American families. So I do believe that we need to be able to reap some of these benefits that that happened from back in the day. Yes. Janora.
Yes. And in addition, I still will fight. Fine, if it doesn't have to be an either or situation, if it can be an and. The reason I fight so much for the and is I would like to invest for it to be in future use. For example, Chrystee, you talked about the older generation or generations that have passed on. So we in 2021, let's just say we got that reparation check. For a lot of us, it would be here and gone. I would like, if we get a grand move to actually have reparations, let's invest that. Invest that in education, invest that in healthcare, invest that in, I saw a couple comments about financial education and prosperity and mortgage and home ownership. Let's do something where it's more than just this moment and this generation. Where can we continue to move on?
So if you look at the CARICOM model, their model, their 10-point program, part of it is checks, reparation money. The other part of it is infrastructure. The other part of it is education. The other part of it is they called it technology transfer, which they would help communities do their own STEM programs or what have you. So it is not, when I say reparations, I don't just mean give everybody a check and watch them go buck wild like on the Dave Chappelle show. I mean, like, literally, it's sitting on a platform and it's a multi-tiered platform as opposed to just giving everybody a check. And financial literacy and things like that, I think, are all part of the platform as well.
So let me just bring on a couple of questions that were here and comments. So Tim said, there are many ways to provide reparations. You could provide mortgage guarantees up to, $350,000 on some amount, regardless of credit scores. Millions of Black people could become homeowners and change their families for generations to come. Tangerine said, I want some land in a nice part of town. So land is huge right now. Tim said you could also provide guaranteed scholarship for college tuition, room and board with no student loans required. And then let's see, fight to take your jobs and pensions, hold them accountable, police and other government entities. So just want to make sure we got to some of those.
And Tony Million said, Chrystee Pharris, my great grandmother died in 1988 and her only job was cleaning white people's houses.
Yeah, well, we grew up on the same block. So, my grandmother, she died. My grandmother died in 1986. And, she worked hard. I know that she worked as a maid. And it was so interesting because years later, my mom moved to Vegas. She went to the doctor. He asked her where she was from. They were like, oh, Middletown, Ohio. And he was like, oh, what's your last name? Blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, was Rachel your mother? She took care of my house. Now, I'm not exactly sure how my mama felt about it, but he was all excited about it, but I don't know how excited I would be if I realized that my grandmother or my mother was, taking care of your family and not exactly taking care of my own, so. But that's a whole nother thing. Let's just get to this last question.
So shout out to Janora McDuffie.
Hey.
A business owner holding it down in Durham, North Carolina. If you need your teeth done, go see my sister.
Well, she said, who exactly will receive this debt payoff reparations? We are becoming a mixed group of people. There are people claiming Black who are not to receive scholarships. That's a good question.
Well,
Go ahead.
If you look at the ADOS model, which is a model set up by a Duke professor, Dr. Sandy Darity, a guy from LA who's a lawyer named Antonio Moore, and a lady who used to work in Capitol Hill named Yvette Carnell. They're proposing that we already have the census for people that goes back to like 1760 something to that effect. And so there's a way to get people's lineage. Now, to trace people's lineage, to find out where they're from, the process actually wouldn't be as hard as people say it is, because it happens all the time. I mean, you can go to Ancestry.com and find who your lineage is like that. So it's not like it's a hard job to do, but based on the government, Census Bureau, and things of that nature. And I personally believe, and based on what they're saying, it should only go to a descendant of American slave, whether it be both parents or one. Literally, they're saying all it has to be is one parent.
Mm-hmm.
When your parents lineage goes back to descendants of slavery, and then you're afforded whatever the reparations are. So I think it's possible. I think the trouble is that we don't want to do it.
So
I think if we can put a moon, we can give people reparations.
So
are you saying, Chrystee?
Well, I was just going to say, so we know that there's so much financial trouble in the Black community right now, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems to become increasingly harder and more difficult because a lot of the middle class are now becoming in the lower class, right? And they're becoming poor and everything. So what types of financial literacy do we need to try to make things better for our Black community?
Well, I think we need to become financial literate and make money the way our white folks have made money, as in learn about the stock market. Now is the perfect time to learn about. Now, granted, this is a multi-layered answer. One, because how are we going to take this time to learn about the stock market when we dying from COVID and now we fighting for justice, right? So it's a lot going on. Right. All I'm saying is that I recently had this conversation, and this is why I'm bringing it up. Everybody is fighting the power and fighting for justice and equality a different way. Everybody's not able to make it to a protest. Maybe someone has an elderly parent that lives with them, so they can't put themselves at risk to bring home food, or for whatever reason. Maybe finding your lane. If you are a person with a financial education, why don't you teach someone? If it's a white person who feels like, what do I do? And that's your lane, and that's some education that you know that you could pass on to potentially help Black folks own or gain financial wealth in this country, then maybe that's your form of protest. I'm just saying the financial education, and I'm also talking to myself. I'm calling myself out on this because I know that I can grow in this way as well. But I think the tools are out there, the information is out there, and now is a very fertile time to jump in on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also go ahead.
Go ahead. You got it.
No, I was just going to say, I also think that Joe Biden, if he's elected, he needs to make that a part of his educational platform. And what I mean by that is, there are a couple of schools in like your hometown, New Jersey. There's a school, Roosevelt Middle School, who is teaching 7th and 8th graders about financial literacy. So they're teaching them how to not have to grab money from payday loans, and debt, how to stay out of debt and how to save for college. Like, they're basically teaching all of this information in the 6th, the 7th, and 8th grade, so that when they finally get out there, they know how to take care of their stuff. So, and there's only 17 states right now that are teaching this in their school system. They need to make this mandatory for all school systems. And I think that Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his platform.
I think a financial literacy.
Oh,
no, you got a question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I definitely agree with that. I was actually talking with my cousin. We was talking about our econ class in high school was pretty much a kickback class. Like
like I think it was like one semester where I think that should have been a class that's taught every year that you were in high school. Especially coming from, I went to Crenshaw High in LA. So especially when you're talking about coming from a school where it was 95% African American. And my cousin and I, we were just saying that we didn't learn about what we needed to have to buy a house. Like what we thought we needed wasn't what we needed. And the important things are just like investing in our own community, because that's how other communities gain financial wealth, by investing in one another. We dish all our money out to everybody else, and then when we want to invest in one another, we ask them for a discount. So we have to start investing. Go back to that Black Wall Street mentality and start investing in one another. And I think that would definitely, for generations to come, help them learn, about financial growth and just making sure we just stay invested in one another.
I think when I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical applications and hands-on training. So I do think that part of it has to be infrastructure programs put in the Black community to help people who might be 30, 40, 50 get jobs, show how to run a business. I also think it's giving people loans and giving them step-by-step programs on how to use the loans that they're getting from the banks and things of that nature. I just don't think it's in the classroom work. I think that's part of it. I think learning how to, balance checkbook or know about stocks and bonds and things. I think that's important. But I think the practical application and the hands-on approach to it, of allowing the community to build itself up through certain programs and infrastructure programs that should be funded by the government. To be honest with you, they tore us down. They should build us back up. So I think that that should be added onto it.
So we can put that on our reparations agenda.
I love it. That's what we're
everything goes up.
Yeah, I think, and I do think that they should give and we know that you can't just give a loan to somebody who doesn't know how to take care of it, right? But I do think that there should be something set aside for African Americans so that they can purchase homes, but that they have to go through a program to learn how to manage it, how to take care of it, how to do things, because you don't just want to throw the money away, but people need to know how to use it too. So
that's how they got it in 08 with all those predatory loans, because people were reading the fine print and their 3%, 2%, interest rate was jumping up to like 27%. So I think they didn't read the fine print, and I think that's part of it as well, allowing people to understand. Because I think what a bigger part of the problem is the fact that some of these contracts are so convoluted and so that you need freaking PhD to understand some of the math involved, some of the wording involved, and and a guy who works a 9-to-5 construction job doesn't understand perpetuity and everything else that's put in these contracts. And I think part of it has to be these contracts have to be made plain and simple. That it's not just a lot of high word, type end words to make it look fancy, what have you. I think some of these contracts that they give us, these loans, everything has to be made plain. I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that back in the day, they used to try to set us up so that we could fail. Let me bring up a couple of these comments. Meeting Monica, we need to teach how impactful a credit score is. An 800 credit score is more powerful than $100,000. You should have no more than, that's right, 30% usage on credit cards, etc. I know so many adults that have no clue. Girl, you need to be over here trying to teach some of us. What's up? Let's put a program together. Yeah, no, I appreciate you dropping the knowledge.
I said a part of my reparation was give us an 800 credit score.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, you did, Quincy. Yes, you did.
Let's see. Max Jerome said, the next time you want to know why there are so many homeless Black people in Los Angeles, look no further than Judge Thomas Long and the law office of Dennis P. Block and Associates. Okay. For those that don't believe it, go to any court in this country and see for yourself how Black people are being thrown in the streets like trash. Also, stop believing that BS that the media is feeding you, that all these homeless people did not pay their rent or on drugs, the landlords, lawyers, judges, etc. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, listen, I had a family member that was on the streets, and it's not always true. Some of the things that we see. So great point about Biden adding items to his agenda. I'd be surprised if President Obama didn't mention to his team. And then let's see, Jed said, I've never seen the market as a clear indicator of what's happening in our country, or to Janora's point, diversifying the market with financial literacy, or abolishing parts of the market like we're seeing now and reinvesting in the communities. Agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jed. I mean, Jed is on it. He's been teaching in schools and stuff like that. So let me ask you. Well, let me just tell you guys that there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. So what type of community organization and strategies do we need to implement to help lift us out of the troubles we are currently in?
Janora.
What do you think?
Man, it's a show long enough. I mean, I do totally believe that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like investing in our community and these programs early on will definitely lead to the need or the ability. Well, let me watch my words. And I don't want to jump too far in our conversation because I know it's going to come up in terms of defunding the police and how we already talked about taking some of that money and putting it in the community. I see that working. Oh, yes. Okay. So I see that working, putting it into the prevention part. There is another African story, if I could share, that I think it would be my ideal community or view of a community that is so powerful and that I hope one day we can achieve, but I'd like to read it if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So when a woman in a certain African tribe knows she is pregnant, she goes out into the wilderness with a few friends, and together they pray and meditate until they hear the song of the child. They recognize that every soul has its own vibration that expresses its unique flavor and purpose. When the women attune to the song, they sing it out loud, then they return to the tribe and teach it to everyone else. When the child is born, the community gathers and sings the song to him or her. Later, when the child enters education, the village gathers and chants the child's song. When the child passes through the initiation of adulthood, the people again come together and sing. At the time of marriage, the person hears his or her song. Finally, when the soul is about to pass from this world, the family and friends gather at the person's bed, just as they did at their birth, and they sing the person to the next life. To the African tribe, there is one other occasion upon which villagers sing to the child. If at any time during his or her life, the person commits a crime or aberrant social act, the individual is called to the center of the village and the people in the community form a circle around them. Then they sing their song to them. The tribe recognizes that the correction for antisocial behavior is not punishment. It is love and the remembrance of identity. When you recognize your own song, you have no need or desire to do anything that would hurt another.
Ooh, that is beautiful.
Man, right? Like, I mean, we got to start from scratch, right?
I think that's part of it. I think there's just so much. I think we don't like. I don't want to say we don't like each other. I think we have a great distrust for each other because we've been brainwashed for so long. We look at each other as enemies more than we do look at each other as family or community. So I think part of the community organization part, I think we sort of gotta start, like you said, start from scratch. And I don't know how that works out or how it comes to be, but I do think that we need to collectively be on one accord before we start a lot of this other stuff, or we're just gonna crumble it down. Like I think of I look at it like Liberia. If anybody ever searched Liberia, a group of African Americans left the United States, they went to Liberia to start their whole nation. And one thing that they did is they treated the native Africans the same way white people treat black people in this country. So they were doing the same thing to the native Africans that were happening to them in this country. So I think the healing part is good, and I think everything can blossom from the healing part. But in terms of how that looks or how that works out, I have no clue.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to bring it back to what I think should happen, can happen, here. I think when everything is settled and everybody goes home and they're not protesting anymore, are we still going to kick up the dust and make sure that there's some changes and policies that are going to happen? And that's putting pressure on the DA's office and our Black communities, our Black leaders that are in office. What are they doing for us? You know, I think this is our time that we have to make sure that we are not allowing this to just settle and, oh, we're going to take a knee with you guys and all that kind of stuff. When it's all said and done, are we still going to be on fire? Are we still going to be on fire to go vote like we've been on fire about getting out here and protest? And that's where I'm like, this is what we got to make sure we do. Are they going to be on fire like they did for Obama? You know, or is this just going to settle? Go ahead.
Well, I think that's why we need to capitalize on this moment now. We are still on fire. 16 days later, we still got masses and masses across the world, which is beautiful. So let's take this moment and do it now. Let's create what we want and what we're fighting for right now, so that after it's all said and done, like you said, we're not like wondering where we go from here. And I think that takes many voices at the table, right? Not just Black Lives Matter, but the spiritual leaders and the political leaders that look like us, even involving the Black chiefs of police departments that might have an inside idea of how we can come together and move forward. But I do think that there needs to be laid out, this is what we need. And I do think it needs to be way past more police training, or don't do this particular technique. We need to put it all out there on the table.
So, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, so Quincy, since you were a part of the community, you used to be a police officer. Do you feel that police officers can be reformed?
Yeah and no. Police departments could be reformed as in policy regarding like techniques, and like people always say, well, you know, these officers need more training, right? And it's not the training. I thought I was one of the best trained officers out there. I believe California has some of the best trained police officers. The issue is it's like dealing with a virus, and how you deal with a virus, you have to attack it from within. So everyone want to address the exterior racism, but you got to start with the interior racism. And how you deal with that is you have to attack it from the beginning, the hiring process. You know, I give you a prime example. When I applied, I was a college graduate. I have no criminal record. I've never done drugs. I don't even drink. And the only reason why I made it was because a Black background investigator pushed me through, because they wanted to disqualify me just because what neighborhood I grew up in. Whereas you had white officers who was coming in with DUIs, who was coming in with arrest records. And Black officers damn near have to come in with the resume of Obama just to be considered. So as far as when people say reform, I hear all the exterior stuff, but this thing have to be attacked from within. Because I don't care, you can't train the racism out of somebody. And that's the part that people are missing. You could give them all the training in the world, but if they're a racist, if they're a horrible person, and I give you a prime example of, I remember being in the academy and I had people coming up to me like, "You're my first Black friend." So here we are. I'm the first Black person you ever felt comfortable or even consider a friend, and now you're going to get thrown out into a community where pretty much your primary interaction with Black folks is going to come from a cop and civilian encounters. And so in order to attack the racism that goes on in a police culture, because that's the issue, it's the culture. You have to attack the culture. Because I had black officers who've been on the department 20, 30 years that said, hey, the person who you dealing with, his father was a racist on the department. So now I'm dealing with the son that's a racist on the department. So you have to tag who they hiring and then who they promote, because that's who molds the department. That's who dictates the culture. So you can the reason why I say yeah and no is because you can have all these exterior reform policies and stuff, but if you don't attack this from within, if you don't hold the leadership, administrations accountable, nothing is not going to change. Because since the 1960s, police departments have reformed. There was one point you could shoot a fleeing felon. If the person was a felon and running, you could shoot him in the back. Okay, you can't do that anymore because that's been reformed. Still haven't changed the issues because the issue is the culture is still the same. Because I've spoken to white officers who came on in the 1960s. The culture is still the same. There's been laws and things that have changed. They wear body cameras. Have that changed anything? No. So in order to attack this virus of racism, because think about what we're going up against. You're talking about 100 years of a culture that was originally established to catch slaves. So when you talk about the culture that you're attacking, you have to attack this from within. When people talk about those officers not speaking up, that's part of the culture. You're not going to get a 3-day, 4-day officer speak up to a 20-year officer that's being completely fouled.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that how you felt about those. Because look, the reason why I'm not an officer anymore because I filed a racial discrimination complaint. I filed it on Friday. I was off Saturday. I was off Sunday. I was put on administrative leave on Monday. That was my last day ever as a cop. So if they want police officers to speak up, you have to protect those police officers that speak up, because this is what happens. A police officer files a racial discrimination complaint. He gets retaliated against. He sues, right? They say he wins his lawsuit. Well, he won't be an officer again. He got his money, he's gone. So you one less officer that had integrity, but everybody that retaliated against him in that system is still there. I can tell you right now, the chief in Santa Monica, Cindy Renault, she was my commander. The chief in Fullerton, he was the commander in my IA investigation. So not only that they stay within law enforcement, but those same type of people branch out and go to other departments, and the culture stays the same. So basically you're saying that. So let me just do a recap. One, it's difficult for a Black person or man or whatever Black person to get into the force, especially if you come from Compton or any places like that. Then you have a 100-year-long systematic racism within the culture. And then you have, if you do speak up, well, then there's now you have everybody against you. And the people who are kind of racist, they're just traveling from different locations to different locations. Is that what you're saying, recapping?
It's almost like the behavior is rewarded. There's like, you had people coming up to me, asking me about the same person that retaliated against me was retaliating against them. You got the same person popping up in 6 different lawsuits, and there's no accountability. Not from the mayor, not from the city council. The same person. And then what happens? He went from a sergeant to a lieutenant to a commander. And so what type of people you think he rewards that's under him? So
Quincy,
go ahead.
What does the Black community do to organize to get those things out of the situation? I guess we're talking about community organization. So if everything that you're saying is happening, How do us as a Black community organize to weed that out of our communities?
We have to hold our elected officials accountable. I'm talking about local officials. You know, we have these people that we get familiar with their name, and we just vote for them because we didn't heard the same name all the time, and then you look up, it's like, okay, what have you? I put it to you like this: I had a city council member tell me that he knew the department was racist. Okay, if you know that, and you're in charge of who's chief and who is this, say something. But see, they're comfortable because when their nephew or son are in trouble, they got the chief on speed dial.
So basically what I just said earlier is we have to start holding our local officials accountable. And I think what I would like to do is to grab as many people as I can that is in every county across this nation and have them put a list of all of the people that are in their office who are running so that we can say yes or no. Because a lot of times the local politicians that are running or government officials, a lot of times we don't know who they are. We only know who the big people are. But we don't know who the judges and the DA and just all of those people. So we need to make sure that we jump on that. I also want to jump to things that are a little bit current that are happening, because there is a lot of juicy stuff that is happening around here, which we can actually start with Drew Brees. Drew Brees talking about, but I will never disrespect the flag. But you got all them brothers protecting you, making sure that you don't die and get paralyzed. Go ahead.
You know what the ironic thing about the Drew Brees situation is to me, because I knew about this like a while back, is that the whole conversation he was talking about was about symbolism, the symbol of the flag, the symbol of the kneeling, and that's what he cared about. But there's a symbol on the side of his helmet called the fleur-de-lis. It means the lily flower. That symbol on the side of his football helmet. That symbol used to be burned into the shoulders of runaway slaves in Louisiana.
Ooh.
So and then if you ran away the first time, they'd burn it into one shoulder, cut off your ears. If you did it the second time, they'd burn it into another shoulder and cut your hamstring. If you ran away the third time, they'd kill you. So my thing is, why is one symbol okay for him and the other symbol not okay for him? Does he not know, or does he not care? And that's my whole thing about it. It's like he cares up to a point. He goes back to World War II. Let's take it further back than that. There's a lot of symbols in this country that I have a problem with. The fleur-de-lis being one of them. So I think it's a bunch of crap.
Well, I think, Abdul, what you just dropped, I don't think any of us on this call knew.
No, I didn't know that.
So I think that part of it is just not being educated ourselves on our history, or the history of this country, the history of the world for that matter. And I think Shannon Sharpe, I don't know if you all saw his response to, oh man, brother had too many mics to drop during him breaking Drew Brees down. Yeah. But of what I got out, or what was most powerful to me out of everything that Shannon Sharpe said, was Drew Brees knows Black people. He's known Black people his whole life. So a lot of times we might pass for somebody, he just doesn't know or isn't familiar, but he's been around Black folks his whole life and still came in the most short-sighted, insensitive time and comment about all of that. So if you're around Black folks and you still don't get it,
right,
I think that's a really deep issue.
Yeah, it's so funny because go ahead, Quincy.
I was gonna say, I saw it on the police force. There were people who was comfortable around Black folks. They were comfortable around me, but they still lived in a bubble. And I used to tell them, your American experience and my American experience are not the same. And you can't go into every scenario thinking everybody has had the same American experience. And I said, prime example of this, you see that flag and that song is playing, you get prideful, you start crying. It means something to you, right? He said, yeah. I said, yeah, that feels good. I said, I wish I could feel that, because if I cry during the national anthem, is because I'm thinking about all the black soldiers that have died for a country who didn't give a fuck about them. Excuse my language, but that's how I had to put it. And to me, that is the most painful thing, to pay the ultimate sacrifice for a country that gives a damn about you. So with people like Drew Brees and a lot of other white folks, the thing that they don't realize is our American experience is not like their American experience. So things like Make America Great Again, that's, to us, that's taking us to a past that we don't really ain't too great for us. And I think
although you know, or you think they just don't care.
Yeah, and I think although that
do you think that they? He was saying, he asked you, do you think they don't know, or do you think that they don't care?
I think they're not educated enough on us. See, how is that possible? It's about being educated about us. Like white folks that do get it are educated about us, our history. That's why they can empathize with us, because they didn't done the research and study about our culture, what we've been through, and all the issues we have had since been in this country.
You know, it's interesting because I've been seeing a couple of IG messages where some kids were saying, wow, it took this protest and following people on Instagram for me to learn. This is the first time that I've learned as much as I have about Black history this whole entire time. And I've gone through my whole entire high school years. And I thought it was interesting because, you know, we know this, but the newer generations coming in and I'm like, oh, wow, they really don't know. They don't know some of this history. Now, we're not talking about people like Drew Brees. I can see Abdul's eyes is looking like, what are you talking about? What you got to say, Abdul?
I think it's willful ignorance. I think, let's just say they don't teach all of the intricate parts of our community and the intricate parts of the people who we should know in the Black community. They tell about Martin Luther King and they tell about slavery. From those two things alone, you should understand that our experience is different. From the bottom, the bare minimum, you should understand that our experience is different. You don't have to get into the intricacies of, you know, convict leasing and all the things that happened after that, and Jim Crow and redlining and you don't even have to know about that. If you go to the bare minimum of what they tell us about Black people in this country, with slavery and civil rights, and if you don't understand that our experience is different based on those two things alone, I think you willfully don't want to know because it makes you feel better not to know.
Okay, so let me.
I do have a point, but before we switch gears a little bit, and that is, I know there's been part of this conversation where it's just like, white folks, y'all need to just go figure it out, read a book, watch this documentary. I feel yes, and I feel like it was more powerful. Whatever comeback to Drew Brees it was more powerful coming from his teammate or coming from a person where it's heart to heart. You can't find that in a book. You can't find that empathy or compassion or connection. So that's why I continue to encourage conversation and dialogue, especially if it's somebody you have a connection with.
Okay, so let's talk about.
So in order for white people to understand, hold on, I'm sorry, Chrissy, but in order for white people to understand or feel what you're feeling, you got to hold every white person's hand. Like they just can't see something. Like everybody didn't see or wasn't there for the George Floyd thing, but they saw it and they saw it was wrong. So how can you see something in a video and say it's wrong, but not read something in the book and say the exact same thing is wrong and understand the plight of a group of people? Like, I don't feel the need to explain myself or to explain the Black community or explain the Black experience to every single white people, just so you can get a clear understanding of how to treat me as a decent human being. Like, part of this shit is just plain decency.
Right. I hear you loud and clear, Abdul. And I think that's a choice that we have as individuals. And for me, if it is a person that is in my circle that is white and honestly is coming just to have a conversation, then I'm as tired as I might be talking about this shit. I am the type of person that will have that conversation, because I know that if I connect to you in that place and all of a sudden you're a better person and you're able to spread that to your community, then I'm doing my job. And I mean, each do our job differently or choose our lane to do our job. And that's the one I'm choosing.
So I actually been doing that the last week. I've been sharing information. I shared it with somebody who I know does not interact in the Black community at all. Maybe a little, you know what I mean? Has a good heart. but I knew that she would not have empathy on the situation. She didn't even know it at the time. She didn't even know it happened. And I shared it with her. And then, of course, because I shared it with her, and I started sending her videos on her Instagram so that she could see what was happening in the world, so that she didn't think it was the Black people that were out here looting and all that kind of stuff. And when she took it to her church group, her Bible study, and they started to say, well, blah, 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 whatever it is they were saying about Black people, she was like, no, actually, that's not right. And then she showed them the video. So it did help. But I'm also at a place, so I'm on your side, Janora, but I'm also on Abdul's side, because the other part of me is like, all of this old stuff is starting to come up. I'm starting to, all the old wounds are starting to come up and they're festering. And I'm also at a place where I feel like I'm so tired and I can't give you any more information, because if I do, it's going to break me down. So I'm tired. As a matter of fact, I'm looking, I just want to say Paula Langton is on here, and I love you too, Paula. She was my teacher at Emerson, and she, we just had somebody that just passed away, which was, her name was Chrystee Linklater, who was my teacher, and Paula was my teacher as well. And because of Chrystee Linklater, she gave me the wisdom and the confidence to be this actress who was strong, so that when I went into the other part of the world with other people who did not see me, who did not value me as a Black actor, I already had that foundation from. So thank you, Paula. Thank you, Chrystee Linklater, who rest in peace. But if it wasn't for them, I probably would have lost it in college, because I was like, oh my God, you people, I can't believe it. Anyway, Abdul, did you want to say something? Next one?
Yeah, I know we're about to close off this subject, but I think we should take cues from other communities. And if you look at the Jewish community and how, if you want to join, if you want to become a Jewish person, if you're a person trying to transition to the Jewish community, the first thing they do is they reject you twice and tell you go learn on your own. And then on the third time, they educate you. I think that wouldn't be a bad model to use.
You're so smart, Abdul. You just know.
There you go. Well, there you go. Okay, so let's talk about Terry Crews. And for those of you who do not know what Terry Crews said, this is what he tweeted. Defeating white supremacy without white people creates Black supremacy. Equality is the truth. Like it or not, we are all in this together. And well, people didn't quite like that too much. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you should take some steroids and shut the fuck up.
Okay, we're going. Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not gonna quite go that far.
I know. I'm like, I didn't expect the swearing in here. We did drop F-bombs twice already today. But go ahead.
I think Terry, in his response and apology or clarification or whatever, he was just saying we need to work together. And I support that. I think his use of Black supremacy was not the right use, because I know we'll probably talk about this too. There's no such thing. It takes power to have supremacy. And right now, as people, we have no political power or no financial power. We don't even have emotional power. We still have to convince people that
we can say shit, because the name of the show is shit. So
okay, great. Okay. But take it back to New Orleans and Katrina, right? We saw brown people hurting, and we still had to beg that was wrong, or the reaction was insufficient. So the whole point I'm trying to make is Black supremacy, complete misuse. He wanted to say work together. Okay. To move the conversation, though, is where is the space for that dialogue and for forgiveness and moving forward?
And he's always making some type of mistake on. He says so many crazy things that I can't even give him a pass. I can't give him a pass. Go ahead, Quincy.
I'm starting to think he wasn't acting on white chicks when he was. Yeah. Because he played that role pretty damn good, so I'm starting to think he was an actor. I think Black. I think when you have a platform like that, you have to be careful with what words you use. and he put out there black supremacy, and now you have all these racist ass people who have taken that and they are running with it. People who don't want to admit that there's racism in this country regarding black people, that the system is racist towards black people. They are now running with this term black supremacy. And that's why when you have a platform like Terry Crews, you have to be careful about the things that you say and the words you use, because now you go out there and I saw one young lady on Twitter. Actually, it was on Terry Crews' thread. She was saying how like black people caused her out of her name, and that was white supremacy. And so people was like, how does that equal to like slavery and what people went through in Jim Crow? Like, you being called names, trust me, if black people, the only thing we dealt with was being called names, hell, we'll take shit. We call each other names all the time. Right. We'll take that in a minute.
Right.
So you know, it just goes back. You have to, when you have a certain platform, you got to be careful with the things you say, because
I don't think black Americans can even be racist. Nonetheless, black supremacy, black supremacy and racism. We don't control anybody's budget. We don't control interest rates. We don't even control our own community. So how can we be black supremacists if we have nothing to be supreme over you about? Yeah. We don't control the religion that people can adhere to in this country, or what's in the religious books or in the religious texts. We don't control. We didn't come up with the Constitution. There's like a litany of things that will require you to be a racist.
You have no power.
Right. So that brings me to Candace Owens, who is, I mean, I keep doing. I know everybody's eyes are like. So if people who don't know who Candace Owens is, I've been doing a little bit more research, things that are popping up, how it looks like she started on the black side and was for black people and was defended by the NAACP when white people called her out of her name and won a settlement and all of this crazy stuff. And now she's jumped on the Republican side and is now downing black people and says, in my opinion, her expression is George Floyd has no value and we're making him a martyr. So I'm curious to know what your comments and thoughts about her and all of the stuff that's going on.
I think she's a vicious capitalist who will do anything for $1. And someone like Kanye West put a battery in her back and allowed her to use his platform, gain popularity. And there's always one token or one coon or however you want to describe them who will do anything and say anything for a check. And if that means putting down their own community, if that means putting down their own people, if in certain cases that means lynching them, they would do it for money. And she's no different. She's no different. She's no different than anybody else. She's a mercenary. That's all she is.
Yeah. And to piggyback a little bit off what Quincy was talking about with the use of black supremacy and now white folks are using it against us or be afraid. I think when brown people talk like Candace Owens, white people are so quick to be like, well, she's black. Well, you know, what's wrong with that? What? Or we'll use it not in our favor.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say what I actually feel about Candace Owens. So I want to be respectful, but you know, just it seems like, and I kind of noticed their strategy when Obama was president. Like, you had all these black people that they were used to come out. It was the sheriff, I can't remember, Sheriff Clark, and from Milwaukee. They have very strategic black people that they have. Anytime there's a black issue that they're gonna put out there. I mean, it's even this guy named, he's supposed to be a former officer named Brandon Tatum that you know, whatever issue that comes out regarding black folks in the justice system, he's taking the opposing opinion. And you just have these black folks who found out that if you're black and you speak out against black people, you become popular. You're going to get on Fox News. You might go visit the White House. And some folks, you know, some folks will sell their soul by any means necessary. And that's just just the way it is.
Yeah, sell their soul and sell out all their folks. And that's not
Yeah.
to say that we don't individually have our own voices within the Black community. But when it is anti all the way, then something wrong.
So I want to jump on to one more. Oh, go ahead, Abdul, and then I will.
I would say the modus operandi of this country since the inception of this country is you can always find money oppressing Black people. And if it's from talking about it or putting them in chains, you will always get $1 if you find a way to oppress Black people.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I want to jump into one more because we're running short on time here. Billy Porter. So Billy Porter, actor from the show Pose, talked about, he's basically saying that Black people, Black men are white supremacists, and they're killing all of the, I guess, what you call the trans men, trans women that are out there. So I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are on that. And is this the right time for him to launch his platform about it?
Black trans women are the target of violence in such a horrific way. And unfortunately, it is at the hands of Black men. Straight Black men, or whatever. It doesn't even matter the sexuality. And he wants trans women or trans people of color, man or woman, to be counted in the fight and showing that all Black lives matter, not just straight Black lives. But within that, clearly calling out, okay, the trans community of color are the victims, not of police brutality, or not just of police brutality, but of Black folks as well. So if we're gonna call out for equality and justice, then we need to call ourselves out. Is it the right time? Shit, if we're putting everything on the table that we're fighting for, why not? And then I did, Lee Daniels reposted Billy Porter's comment, and his thing was like, well, if not now, when? Like, when do I get my chance? And for him, he said, I can't erase gay just like I can't erase Black. So why am I going to take a back seat? So I say, if we putting shit on the table, if we are airing it all out, if we're not going to have this epic moment till 50 years from now, why not?
And I just want to add part of the other thing, and if I'm correct, there was a transgender person that was out there marching, and I think got killed because some people beat. Is that not true?
Beat up real bad.
Got beat up real bad by, I think, Black men or something. And so I think that's another reason why this was being brought up. Here's this person marching for equality and everything and not being killed, and then ends up getting beat up while he's out there on the march. So that's why I wanted to make sure I brought that up. Or they were out there on the march. I don't want to say he. So go ahead.
I think the problem with what he's saying, and I think a problem with a lot of what's going on now, is that the narrative of this whole thing is solely focused on the police, and I think it's purposely done to focus on the police. But the idea of this whole thing is about Black oppression, and it doesn't. It's financial, it's educational, it's everything. It's Black oppression across the board. What Black Lives Matter, for what they started out for against the police, gave into a wider scope, and it includes this Black oppression of Black people. And I think that narrative forced him to think that the Black community wasn't looking towards transgender people as a group that needs to be protected and needs to be advocated for. And it has more to do with the media and the people that a lot of people put in front to speak on these issues. Because every time something comes up within the last week or two, they talk about the police. But the police is one of the last dominoes to fall after everything else falls. You know, women dying of higher rates of through birth, and then educational system, and then the finances. Like, you should reach the police last if all these other things were set, together. But we keep focusing on the police, and I think he fell into that narrative, focusing on the police when it's about Black oppression, and the transgender movement is part of that bigger scope about Black oppression.
Mm-hmm. And Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it, Quincy.
I'm not gonna lie. I had an issue with it, and I've spoken out about transgender women being killed several times, and I think Billy Porter has had that platform for him multiple times to speak up about it. I have an issue with it because it seemed like every time Black men are not allowed. I mean, when people say Black Lives Matter, I include that in everybody. Black gays, Black transgenders. When we out there talking about Black Lives Matter, to me, I'm thinking of everybody that is Black. I didn't know like there's a separate, whatever. So I just think at a time where Black men are being victimized, it's like Black men are never allowed to be victims before somebody is making us out to be a villain. Like we can't be a victim for 2 days without somebody making us out to be a villain. And I always say this, and a lot of people don't like it. I said, Black man is everybody's villain. Whatever social group it is, it's like we're everybody's villain. And we can't, and for some reason, we're not allowed to be victims. Because every time we try to be a victim, here comes somebody making us out to be the villain. And I just thought that Billy Porter has had multiple times to speak up. And I've seen, on red carpets or whenever. I just think at a time where we're fighting for people to acknowledge us as victims at the hands of the police department, don't villainize us right now. And because that's exactly what Candace Owens did to George Floyd.
Right. Yeah,
he was a victim. So what she tried to do, what they making him is a villain.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought the timing was bad. I think it's a legitimate thing that needs to be addressed. It's just like when people talk about, well, what about Black on Black crime? That's definitely an issue. That's an issue we have to address. But what we do know is when Black people kill Black people, we go to jail. When a Black man kill a transgender, his ass going to jail. But when other people kill us, they don't go to jail. And that's what we out there battling and fighting for right now. So his statement, it's a legitimate issue out there. Because like I said, I've even spoken about it and I'm straight. But it's again, you can't just be out there killing people because you have it. And Black men being homophobic, that's a whole different discussion for another show, maybe, because that's just in our culture. But you can't do that. But right now, while we trying to acknowledge this system in this country, to acknowledge us as victims, I just thought the timing was bad to make us out to be villains.
That's a great way to end this whole thing, because you said it absolutely perfect. Before we jump off, because I know we're a little bit over our time, I always like to do the BPS Person of the Week. So I want to give a shout out since we are about what are our next steps of how we want to uplift our community, what are our things that we need to do to bring financial literacy to people and financial wealth to our people. And I had a young lady who reached out to me on Instagram and said, do you mind if I send you one of my products? And I was like, sure. And this sister right here made some bamboo and charcoal toothbrushes. She is Black owned. And it's high quality bamboo and charcoal toothbrushes that is biodegradable, plastic free, naturally whitens and actually removes more harm bacteria than a traditional toothbrush. And it's called Mi Amor Los Angeles. Well, you can actually find it at miamorlosangeles.com. So that is a way that you can support Black owned businesses. And I thought it was so dope that this girl decided that she was, or woman decided that she was going to make toothbrushes. I was like, well, come on now. And it's biodegradable. I do have her on the line. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, my dear. Come on in. How are you doing? Can you hear? I think you're on. There you go.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Hi, everybody. Good. Hi,
hey.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We just want to give a little love. So just, give you a little platform real quick to talk about your product, and then we're going to jump on out. So go ahead and just tell us about your product.
Thank you. Well, my company is in Los Angeles, and we have the bamboo charcoal toothbrush. And like you said, it's biodegradable, it's eco-friendly, and I wanted to come up with a product I've been interested in e-commerce for quite some time. And my thought is, where are the Black Colgates? Where are the Black Procter & Gamble's? I wanted to be a Black woman with a toothbrush company. So I didn't see any Black women with companies like this for, beauty, for health and things like that. And I see a lot with different types of allergies. And I know how hard it is to find really good products. So I came up with the bamboo charcoal toothbrush. It's really good for you. It's good for the planet. We have a problem with plastic right now, among all of our other problems, of course, but we've had a longstanding problem with plastic. And I thought about this product and I go, you know what, this is great. This is perfect. And on my toothbrushes, I have a message, and it's in several different languages. I don't know if you can see it good. It says, I love you. And this is in Swahili. And I thought it would be a good way to kind of like spread joy, to people. So much unrest, and just with those words, people like to hear that, and people want to feel included.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sending them to me. I have them right here. So I wanted to make sure we gave a little love, a little shout out to you. Thank you again for just being a part of this. And our goal is to try and support as many people in the community, the people who are not seen, who are not heard. And this was a great way to be able to do it. So all of you guys out there, you can get a 4-pack. I think it's $12.99. Is it $12.99, Sean?
No, it's $18 for a 4-pack, and it should, for a family of 4. I mean, the American Dental Association recommends every 3 months, but it's up to you how often you change your toothbrush. So
got it.
It's $18 for a pack.
Well, there you go.
Chrystee,
Yes.
if there's 4 in the pack, then you can send it too, right?
Yes. Well, wait. I can't send you 2. I can send everybody on this call 1.
Whoop, whoop. Can't wait to get mine.
Yeah. I can send it to you, but see, here it is right here. And I've been using it. That's why my teeth so white. See?
They're beautiful.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good job, Sean.
So thank you, Sean. Everybody out there, thank you once again for joining us live. We really, sorry. I think something just came up there. Thank you for, somebody said, what's the website? I think I thought I typed it in, but let me just type it in right now.
And while Chrystee's typing it in, just a shout out to those that have rolled with us since Black People Shit restarted. Tangerine, Natasha, Tim, Audrey, and then even today got new folks like my sisters. So your participation and you joining this live really means a lot. So thank you.
Yes. So there's the website right there, miamorelosangeles.com. I just put that on there. And again, thank you for all the people, Jed and Paula from my Emerson College days. My mom, I have to make sure I post that on here. It was her birthday yesterday, so everybody say happy birthday to my mama.
Oh, happy birthday, Chrystee's mama.
Yeah. So please make sure you guys join us next week. If you enjoyed the show, share, like, all of that great stuff. Quincy, do you have anything that's coming up that you would like to share? Anything that's happening that you want to promote, or your website, anything like that?
Well, I'm also a part of a Facebook show, Uncouth Radio, me and a couple of friends. I'm actually getting ready to go on with them in like another hour or so. And I'm actually, I never really told my story about what occurred with me with the police department. So a lot of people have told me, like, I give little bits and pieces. So right now I'm working on an interview. It's going to be like a documented interview where I'm going to kind of give people the insight of what I went through. And now it would probably make sense to a lot of people. So I'll let Chrystee would be the first to get it. And so if you want to bring me back on, we can discuss it, but I'll let you post it. And so I'm working on that. But thank you guys for having me, though.
Absolutely. We really enjoyed it. Thanks again, Sean, for coming on. And I'm going to let everybody go because we are definitely over time. So we love you guys. Thanks again. We will see. Oh, Janora, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to give a real quick plug. We talked about financial literacy and financial education on my show, Urban Come Up, which is a podcast. There are several of my podcast episodes that are specifically about financial education. I interviewed this brother named Tyrone Jackson. He's also known as the Wealthy Investor, and he breaks it down like ABC. So check that out. It's called Urban Come Up. The Urban Come Up.
That's a website or?
You can find the podcast on iTunes. You can also find it on YouTube, but look for the episodes with Tyrone Jackson specifically because we do talk about financial education and literacy.
Beautiful. All right, and if y'all know some other people, let us know because we'll definitely have them on the show or maybe create a program specifically to help people with financial literacy. So, all right, you guys, have a good night. Thanks again for staying with us. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye, Quincy. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Quincy.